1, 2, 3.
Please be seated. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Father Greg Kalscheur, Dean of the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences, and I'm glad to welcome you all to this 2021 induction ceremony for the Order of the Cross and Crown. It's a shame that we can't gather in person here in Gaston 100, but it's good that we can gather virtually to celebrate the accomplishments of our students. The Order of the Cross and Crown, this Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences Honor Society for Seniors, recognizes those who have combined academic excellence with an established record of exceptional service and leadership on campus. And it's this integration that I think is really key. The integration of intellectual rigor and preparation for leadership and service is at the heart of what we hope for from a Jesuit education. And therefore, it's at the heart of what we want to recognize in the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences. Many of you may have heard me over the years make reference to a speech from Father Peter Hans Kolvenbach, who was the Superior General of the Society of Jesus. And in a speech at Santa Clara in the year 2000, he said, "The measure of our schools is who our students become. What kind of people do they become?" He went on to say that we hope our students become well-educated, whole people of solidarity, ready to take responsibility in the real world. His successor, Father Adolfo Nicolas, expanded on that, saying that he hoped our students become people of depth of thought and creative imagination, people who are well prepared for meaningful lives in service of the common good. We try to integrate all of these things in a formative Jesuit liberal arts education in the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences. And I think this integration is also reflected in the name of this honor society. When I first became dean and started presiding over this ceremony, I tried to find out a little bit about the history of this name, and I really didn't find much that told me why this was called the Order of the Cross and Crown. But I do think that we might see the name as grounded in the image that's part of the seal of Boston College. If you look at the seal of the university, it includes 2 crowns and the seal of the Society of Jesus, which has a cross in it. Cross and crowns. The cross, I think, reminds us of the Jesuit aspiration to serve God under the standard of the cross, laboring alongside Jesus, faithful to a mission of loving self-gift, sharing in the mission of Jesus to bring freedom and wholeness and fullness of life to the world. That gives us the cross. The crowns seem to be a reference to the town seal of Boston in England, which had 2 crowns on it. So we have the Order of the Cross and Crown. And I think bringing the cross and crown together in the seal of the university and in the name of this honor society emphasizes how Jesuit education really grows out of a Jesuit spirituality that's oriented toward service of the greater good, a civic spirituality, in the words of Jesuit historian John O'Malley. We talk about that today in Jesuit mission circles as the service of faith and the promotion of justice, as an education that helps us to put our lives at the service of the common good. And I think, therefore, the name of this honor society, the Order of the Cross and Crown, should always invite us to reflect on an enduring question. How is God calling us to put our lives at the service of the common good? That tells us something about what I think we can learn from the name of this honor society, the Order of the Cross and Crown. Out of the group of inductees that we honor today, there is a particularly select group of distinguished inductees who are designated as Marshals, and they are led by a Chief Marshal. Interestingly, when I, again, tried to do some research about this order, I learned that in the early days of this honor society, what we now call Marshals were known as Knights, and they were led by a Knight Commander. That's language we probably wouldn't use today, but it kind of, I think, reflects something of the life of St. Ignatius, who as a young man aspired to live according to a courtly, chivalric ideal, and who at an important point in his own life stood vigil with his knight's sword before the image of Our Lady of Montserrat in Catalonia, and then left his sword in the sanctuary there as a sign of his conversion, leaving behind the life of a courtier and a knight to become a pilgrim searching for God's will and how he put his life at the service of God's will. A knight in the service of the king becomes a pilgrim in the service of the Lord. That might have given us knights and knights commanders, but today we have a Chief Marshal, not a knight commander. And as we continue our induction ceremony, it's now my pleasure to introduce this year's Chief Marshal of the Order of the Cross and Crown, Larissa Truchan. Larissa is a sociology major with a minor in philosophy, and she very much illustrates this integration of intellectual rigor and service that we hope to honor with this society. She's a member of Alpha Sigma Nu, a junior inductee into Phi Beta Kappa. She's done research with Jean Heyman in the psychology department and with Julie Shore and Charlie Derber in the sociology department. And she's combined all of that with leadership in FACES and the Jamaica Magis program and for Boston. And after graduation, she will head to Harvard Law School. So Larissa very much, I think, models what we hope for from the Order of the Cross and Crown, and it's now my pleasure to introduce her and to invite her to come to the podium.
Hi everyone, my name is Larissa and I'm so honored to be here with all of you virtually today. I want to start off by congratulating all of us inductees on our achievement. While it is hard to stay committed to both service and academics in a normal school year, it's even harder in the midst of a global pandemic. Caring for oneself physically, mentally, and emotionally, while also committing to the care of others is no small feat. We must not forget to give ourselves credit for all that we have done and for all that we continue to do in these difficult times. I'll begin this short speech by talking a little bit about why I started engaging in service in the first place. I came to BC with an expectation that I would major in economics and secure a corporate job on Wall Street after graduation. I was ambitious from the start and figured that taking Pulse as a freshman would be a great resume booster. For those of you who do not know what Pulse is, it's a year-long course that fulfills the theology and philosophy core credits, and that involves 12 hours of service per week. At this point in time, like a lot of BC freshmen, I was engaging in service solely to help myself. It was not about the people for me, it was not about the compassion. As we all know, service looks good on our resume, and I won't lie, that's why I started. It's important for all of us who engage in service to ask ourselves why we are doing what we do. What are our intentions when we choose to engage in service? Are we only engaging in service for selfish reasons? Is there a savior complex fueling our desire to serve others? It was these types of questions that my Pulse professor, Professor Antis, encouraged us to ask ourselves. I did not go into Pulse with the right intentions. Most of us probably do not. But after learning about the social, economic, and political problems in this country from a systemic level, while also interacting with populations directly affected by these problems, my understanding of what it means to engage in service transformed completely. I realized that my true passion did not lie in entering the business world, but rather the legal world, where I would be able to advocate for the protection of the rights of people who are wrongfully subjected to injustices in this country. It was therefore through engaging in service, and most importantly, questioning my intent for engaging in service, that I truly began to understand more about myself, both personally and academically. My interactions with populations of people that someone with my positionality would typically never cross paths with allowed me to uncover who I really am and what I really care about. For the rest of my time at Boston College, my academics have been directly shaped by my experience engaging in service. Boston College has given me the opportunity to engage in service with members of the local Boston community, such as with incarcerated people at Suffolk County House of Correction and with children removed from their homes at St. Mary's Women's Center. Boston College has also given me the opportunity to engage in service with members of the international community, such as with the students at Holy Family Elementary School in Jamaica. It was through my collective experience engaging in service in these various contexts that I discovered my true passion for human rights law, which I will be studying at Harvard Law School after taking 2 gap years, of which service will definitely be a main component. And before I end this speech about service, I feel obligated by the values of service that Boston College instilled within me to make everyone aware of a systemic issue on Boston College's own campus. Despite giving us all the opportunity to serve communities locally, nationally, and even internationally, Boston College continues to fail to serve its students within its very own community. Students of color on this campus, particularly Black students, are continuously subjected to harassment, discrimination, and disrespect enacted upon them, not only by fellow students, but by professors, police officers, and the administration itself. A hate crime took place on campus last week against freshman students of color, and Boston College has not only failed to address it as such, but has continually trivialized the seriousness of the matter and the pattern of race-based abuse that these women have faced both last and this semester. Again, it is because of the values of service that Boston College itself instilled within me that I feel obligated to raise awareness of this problem when giving a speech about service. A Jesuit institution that is truly committed to the values of service should seek to find, address, and condemn the systemic issues it participates in, not cover them up as Boston College has been doing. We as students who engage in service cannot continue to serve the rest of the world and the rest of Boston while forgetting about those on our very own campus. We must not forget to serve each other and look within our own community. It is impossible to address the injustices in the world until we take a long, hard look at how we may be the perpetrators ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Larissa, for those challenging and important words. As we begin our induction ceremony itself, I'd invite you to come back to the podium so I can share with you your induction certificate and pin.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'll now invite to the podium Associate Dean Michael Martin, who works with seniors and coordinates the Order of the Cross and Crown ceremony and program and selection process, to call the names of our inductees.
The Order of the Cross and Crown members for the class of 2021. Chief Marshal, Larissa Truchan. Marshals, Claire Gredanus, Adine Henderson, Sumil Prasad, Morgan Shade, and Chineye Ugocha. The members of the Cross and Crown are George Abukasim, Antonio Aguila, Emily Ambrosi, Anne-Marie Arnold, Scott Baker, Shayna Barreto, Madeline Bacchus, Patrick Carpenter, Grace Kavanaugh, Michael Considine, Keegan Coppola, Anna Maria Constantini, Kristen Cuetos, Susanna Deal, Jessica Flores, Michael Gillane, Isabella Gallo, John Gaiman, Georgia Green, Holly Ann Grell, Colin Griffiths, Patrick Holm, Carmen Ham, Kira Hanlon, Megan Healy, Kayla Hobbs, Eva Hubbard, Alyssa Enfarenta, Ryan Cowper, Anthony Kim, William Knapp, Yoon-Ji Lee, Roquing Liu, Christopher Mastroianni, James McCoy, Maeve McLeod, Josie Morales Thompson, Jonathan Nen, Salvador Norton de Matos, Leanne Lobaid, Matthew O'Keefe, Sophia Pandaletis, William Peters, Catherine Piccioli, Carolyn Ream, Gabriella Resnick, Justin Schneblin, Cesar Sepe, Julia Segru, Anna Tierney, Rachel Vitellia, Sophia Vittoria, Lauren White, and Andrew Wilson.
Congratulations to all of our inductees. Each year at this ceremony, we ask a faculty member to address the new inductees, to speak about how the integration of scholarship and intellectual engagement and service can lead to a rewarding and fulfilling life. This year's faculty speaker is Associate Professor Michelle Meyer from the Biology Department. Professor Meyer did her undergraduate studies at Rice University and then pursued a PhD in biochemistry and molecular biophysics at the California Institute of Technology. She came to Boston College as a faculty member after a postdoctoral fellowship at Yale. Professor Myers has worked closely with me on the promotions committee in recent years and on the search committee for the executive director of the Schiller Institute for Integrated Science and Society. And her commitment to formation of students, I think, is found in the large number of undergraduates who've worked in her lab, and her commitment to mentoring BC women in science and technology, and in her commitment to developing an interesting Enduring Questions course, In the Beginning, Scientific Explorations of Our Origins, in the core curriculum. I look forward to hearing Professor Meyer's remarks today. Thanks.
Good afternoon. First, I'd like to thank Dean Kalscheur for the invitation to speak with you today. I only wish it could have been in person. It's an incredible honor to be here, and I hope that my words rise to the occasion. I think we can all agree that it's been a difficult year. As someone roughly twice the age of most of the inductees here, I'll tell you that it's been a difficult one for me. So much grief, loss of loved ones and livelihoods, civil unrest, bringing to the forefront of issues that have been long buried in our history that must be dealt with. But less tangibly, perhaps, is also lost opportunities for joy, holding hands, sharing meals, the comfort of unguarded companionship, whether this takes the form of watching the game with a friend, cheering on marathon runners, or simply catching up with an old friend long into the night. We've all missed it, and we all look forward so much to the time when these joys can return. It's all too easy to dwell on what has been lost. So let us take a minute and celebrate your incredible successes. Each of you is an embodiment of what it means to be successful at Boston College. And in this moment, I'd also like us to take a moment to reflect on the joy that we've had, whether it's been in the last year or before that. It's important to remember these joys. As an experimental scientist, I've always lived for my questions. The primary one for me has always been trying to understand the boundary between chemistry and life. At what point does a chemical reaction cease to be chemistry and start to be something alive? Answering this question and other slightly more tractable versions of it has brought me incredible joy over my life. For example, the joy of discovery. As a fellow student once pointed out to me, there is a moment when you know something that no one else in the world knows. You've captured some truth that you have yet to share with the world. And in this particular moment, it's an incredible high if it's fully realized, because you have some piece of truth. Fully realizing this moment is an incredible high, but it's nowhere near as frequent as I would like it to be. Increasingly often for me these days, there's also the joy of enabling the next generation of scientists to experience this high for themselves, finding that my students are in fact leading rather than following. I recall very clearly a conversation that I had with actually my first graduate student a number of years ago. We had discussed some data earlier in the week, and I ran into her in the hallway and suggested something that had occurred to me upon further reflection. And she turned to me and said, "You know, I already did that one, and I'll let you know what the result was later." And in that moment, I realized that in fact she was leading, as she should be at that point in her career, but that was in a moment of an incredible pride for me. And while it's not quite the same as the joy of discovery, it comes pretty close. And I could recount for you other instances with both graduate and undergraduate students, but that's the one that tends to stick in my memory. I've also found joy, and perhaps to a greater extent satisfaction, in sharing my expertise with others in order to provide comfort. On March 10th of last year, I walked into my Enduring Questions class and I faced 17 freshmen. And we spent the entire class not devoted to the topic that was originally scheduled, but rather toward discussing questions about what was to come. And I am by no means an expert in infectious disease. However, I'm slightly more of an expert than 17 freshmen, most of whom were not intending to major in science. And in particular, I have to admit that most of the information I had at that time, because information was still relatively scarce, actually came from my scientific Twitter feed. On the other hand, I'll say that one of my close friends from graduate school is a member of the Seattle flu study, and let's just say they'd been concerned for a while at that point, and so I think it was a relatively good news source. In these moments, my limited but greater expertise could help provide comfort to these students and reassurance. And while we were in a time when information was extremely scarce and I could not offer any platitudes or great reassurances, I was able to offer students a glimpse into some greater understanding of what was to come. Furthermore, even through remote instruction, I was able to guide these students in a process of evaluating their information sources throughout the rest of the spring and into the summer, so that they were able to make decisions that could keep themselves safe and keep their families safe. While my path has brought many joys and satisfaction, it also brings many days of sorrow and defeat, of experiments failed, hypotheses proven wrong, rejected grant applications, or painful criticisms. This business is by no means all about the joy of discovery or answering questions, but it is in these moments of defeat that is most important to hold on to our memories of joy. The light at the end of the tunnel may not always be obvious, and in these cases, we need to find our own light. Finding this light may mean making sure that you're on the right path. My undergraduate research mentor taught me well over 20 years ago now that if something isn't working, there's almost always a reason why. You just need to find it, but it might not be obvious. This lesson still applies to my life, and not just to detangling experiments. Sometimes you're wrong, and when you are, you've got to pick up and find a new direction. There is no shame in recognizing that what you're doing isn't working. Perseverance toward a goal can take many paths, and most of them are not straight lines. Finding this light may mean looking for a companion or a guide. Our communities are often frayed these days, yet they are all the more important during difficult times. I wouldn't be here without my mentors and peer supporters. These individuals have changed over time, from fellow students to colleagues and neighbors, even my parents. From my graduate school lab mates to the family that lives upstairs from my condo now, all of them have supported me on difficult days, sometimes just by offering a helping hand or a listening ear. Asking for and accepting help is critical for success. Rarely do we achieve greatness in isolation. It takes a team effort. And this team may be unconventional and incorporate all kinds of supports, both visible and invisible from the outside. Finally, finding this light during a difficult time may mean making a leap of faith into the unknown or simply holding fast onto hopes and dreams. There is no one way to find hope, but the process of doing so is what keeps us human through challenging times. Hope allows resiliency and enduring progress toward goals in times of challenge. All of you are here today because you have succeeded academically, but also because you have chosen to be the light for others. You are the guides, the helpers, and the hope. My PhD advisor was one of few women engineers on the faculty of Caltech in the early 90s. She repeatedly reminded us that there are too many problems in the world for half the population to sit on the sidelines. She was typically referring to the female half of the population, given her position, but I think this thought applies much more broadly. It is only through collective brain power, action, and support that we can make the future a better place. So in this time that we face so many societal challenges, you are our hope. You represent the best there is here at Boston College. As an institution that endeavors to educate men and women that will shape the future with more equity, justice, and compassion, we as a faculty see you as a hope, a lifeline for the future. You will solve the problems of today and hopefully those of tomorrow as well. You will be the doctors that develop the next vaccine, the researchers that innovate new technology to blunt the effects of climate change, the political leaders that guide society through the next crisis, or the community organizers responsible for broadening equity in our society and those around the world. This responsibility may feel heavy, but know that no one expects you to achieve in isolation. We all stand on the supports of our communities. I stand before you here, resting on the guidance of my research mentors and cloaked in regalia worn by my mother for 20 years as a faculty member in her own right. These examples of those who have come before me serve not only as proof of what is possible, but also as an inspiration for what my own life can be. You each have a community that supports you, and each of you will in turn support others in your community and in society writ large. Congratulations on your many achievements, and may your communities and your joys give you perseverance and resilience as you tackle the new challenges in the future.
Thank you very much, Professor Meyer. In recognition of the way in which you embody the ideals of the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences and in gratitude for your presence and remarks today, I'd like to offer you honorary induction in the Order of the Cross and Crown. As our ceremony this afternoon draws to its close, I want to draw us back to words that I shared at the beginning, that the measure of our schools is who our students become. I think we've heard from both of our speakers today a commitment of, an example of, who we want our students to become and who we want to be as faculty members and administrators at Boston College. We want to become people who are committed to working for justice, to an end to racism in the world, in our country, and on our campus. We need to be committed to that mission. We need to be, as Professor Meyer reminded us, people who persevere in pursuit of our goals, even when it can be difficult to see the way forward. We need to be people who bring light and hope into challenging times. I think, too, we need to be people of gratitude. Gratitude is very much at the heart of Jesuit spirituality, at the heart of the spirituality that gives life to this school. We recognize all the gifts that we have received, and we ask ourselves, how do we live lives in gratitude for those gifts? By working for justice, by pursuing truth, by serving the common good. How are we called to live lives that say thank you for all the gifts that we've received? I think, too, as we close, to be people of gratitude is to recognize all the people who have shaped us and helped to make us the people that we are. Professor Meyer reminded us of the importance of her mother's example, of her research mentors' support and encouragement. All the people around us help us to become the men and women that we are. So as we celebrate your induction into the Order of the Cross and Crown today, I hope that you'll be grateful for the support and encouragement of your parents and families and friends and faculty mentors and advisors. All those helped you to become the people that we recognize today. Be grateful for them. I'm grateful for all that you bring to this campus, all that you bring to the life of Boston College. And I'm grateful to Professor Meyer and Larissa, our Chief Marshal, for their words today, and to my fellow deans and all the faculty of the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences. who are grateful to you and who congratulate you on your induction today. So with that, we bring this ceremony to an end. Thank you all. Have a good afternoon. Stay safe and healthy. I'd ask Dean Deschak to lead us out.